We're live, we're live, we're live. We are live. What's good, everybody? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of the MOP podcast, the Mario Verandi podcast. Obviously, I'm your host, Mario, and today I got Doug Norrie in the building. What's up, Doug?
Hey man, how's it going? Happy to be here. Looking forward to talking Nets. Whatever you want to get into, it's all good.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you being here. Obviously, Doug is the co-host of the Locked On Nets podcast. They have a great podcast. Obviously, Locked On NBA is a great company, and I'm really a fan of your work, man. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, much appreciated. Yeah, I mean Nets are an interesting team to talk about for sure. So they'd never disappoint in terms of the storylines,
The
which makes it
drama.
pretty easy to do a podcast about a team that never really seems to have a dull moment.
Yeah, the drama is around Brooklyn. It's around the borough of New York. The chemistry with your co-host is amazing. So I suggest people to go there, and so you can be more in tune with the Brooklyn Nets. And as you mentioned, they always have drama to talk about. So let's dig into today's podcast. Um, the Brooklyn Nets, obviously, they went to the Eastern Conference semifinals last year against the Milwaukee Bucks. Um, they lost, obviously. No, the in 2021, right?
Yep,
2020, yeah.
2021 semi. Yeah,
Last
it's
year,
conference finals, conference semifinals versus the Bucks. Last year got swept by the Celtics.
wow, that was terrible, man. That was terrible. What has been your assessment so far for the Brooklyn Nets season?
Yeah, so I mean they're in a weird place right now because Kevin Durant is hurt. Before that, it was really pretty easy to feel bullish on where the Nets season was going. They had climbed all the way to second in the East. They were, especially when Durant and the rest of the presumed starting five were on the court, they were really dominating those minutes. They were starting to look like a team that could make a championship run. Obviously, the Durant injury stalls that to some degree, though it's not a season-ending injury, so that's good. But it's eerily similar to what happened last season, which is where they had climbed all the way to second in the East, and Durant got hurt and missed multiple weeks, and they fell precipitously in the standings. That I don't think that same thing is going to happen here this time around, but they have lost the first two games without Durant, and it's looked rough at times. So it's a hard team to get evaluation on right now. I think when they're
Yeah.
full strength, they are among the best teams in basketball, but keeping this team full strength is proven to be really difficult over the years. So as always, they're just a very difficult team to get a read on. I'm still really positive about what this season can hold, but that sometimes is harder to be than other times.
Yeah, that's a fact. And obviously, one of the reasons that why the Brooklyn Nets can keep the boat afloat is that the supporting cast is better, right, than last year.
Yeah. Oh, it's much better than last year. Last year, when Kevin Durant got hurt, the first game without Durant, the starting lineup was James Harden, Kyrie Irving. So you're like, okay, that's fine. And then Patty Mills, and then Kessler Edwards and Day'Ron Sharp. That was the
It's too
starting
little.
five.
It's just too little, man.
And that wasn't just because there were injuries. Like that was just the team. They were they had a real rough shout when it came to just supporting cast and depth on the team this year. The idea is to have it be more something like Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, Nick Claxton, Royce O'Neal, and then they started Joe Harris, but they have Seth Curry, they have TJ Warren. The team has
Even
considerably more
Watanabe,
depth.
right?
And Yuta Watanabe, who's been among the best three-point shooters in basketball, especially from the corner. So yeah, no, the depth this season is much better than last season. But Simmons didn't play last game, and the back inch issue for him is probably going to be a season long sort of tightrope walk. So it's not all perfect, but yes, no, compared to what they had last season, this season it's night and day. I mean, it was kind of a joke what they had last year.
Facts. I was about to say the same thing. It was the comparison is day and night. Let's talk about KD. Obviously, he was having a great season so far. He was an MVP candidate. And one thing that we can say, obviously, with these Brooklyn Nets and Kyrie and KD is that it ain't the same without KD. As you mentioned before, KD has been dealing with this type of MCL injury 3 times in a row, if I'm not mistaken. The first time was in the Warriors when Sasa Pachulia fell into his knee. He was out for a long period of time. Then Bruce Brown, as you mentioned last year, fell again into his knee, and now Jimmy Butler. So this is a silly question, if in my opinion. Do you think that maybe can wear a knee brace like Tom Brady, or that's just no?
I doubt he does that. I think these
He's
have
too
been
cool, right? He's too cool
no,
for that.
I actually don't think it's that. I actually don't think he cares about coolness at all,
Wow.
to some degree. Like, I think that Durant, for it can be somewhat polarizing at times. I actually don't think he worries too much about certain types of self-image, right? I think he has a brand that he wants to keep up, and I think he has like a style that he wants to keep up. But in terms of being worried about what like others on a small scale think about him, no, I don't think that would be the case. I do think that to some degree, like the Bruce Brown, in the way he's gotten hurt has been sort of fluky, right? Like they are contact injuries rather than just non-contact, stopping, cutting, stuff like that. I think the Achilles injury in the playoffs in the finals against the Raptors, that's a totally different story. But the knee things specifically were because he got run into in really, really awkward ways. Like he's taken a ton of falls this year. He's hit the ground a lot. He's been fine. It's just when you play a lot of minutes and you're on the basketball court and guys are going to come at you because you're the best player, you are going to get run into more often than not. I don't think, but brace wise, no, I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know. I don't think that would be the case, but that would be definitely the medical piece. That would be way above my pay grade.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of winning and in terms of being successful, in your opinion, do you think KD should be more focused on the postseason rather than the regular season?
Oh yeah, we said this from the beginning on the podcast, Adam and I, that he was playing too many minutes early in the season. I get why they want to do it. He's the best player. The guy lives and breathes basketball. By all accounts, he has very few other interests. Like he just wants to play basketball. That's all he wants to do. It's actually really refreshing if you read and kind of think or study him or just, follow him. It's very clear this guy's posting about college basketball games that no one's watching on weeknights because that's just what he's doing in his off time, right? So, but in terms of keeping him off the court's always going to be hard. But I do think that the Nets early in the season, he was running way too many minutes, and with the team the way it is now, they really have to be kind of primarily championship focused. And so if they are championship focused, you really actually have to manage the regular season pretty well. I don't think they were doing that early in the year. Some of that was context, like Kyrie wasn't playing and Simmons was hurt and there was a bunch of other problems. But I do think keeping that in mind for the team will be important. So in some ways, like the injury is not good. You don't want ever to get players injured. Giving him 6 weeks off isn't also the worst thing in the world because he's just keeping, these guys got a lot of miles on him. He's not exactly young. He was playing the best basketball arguably of his career, but I don't know, saving 1,000 minutes or something like that. No, not that many, but maybe close to that many minutes off of his season is not really the worst thing in the world from a long-term kind of point of view.
Yeah, and it's some type similar to what we're seeing with the Lakers. With Anthony Davis, he's going to be out for a long period of time. So maybe it's a benefit, quote unquote, to be out for that period of time. And obviously, they can. It's the job of Jack Vaughn, obviously, to turn maybe a switch, because when you had KD, you got 30 points easily being scored every night. So now they are making a switch, and that was one of the points that you made, that they can make a switch to defense right now, playing some type of defense, paying more attention to each possession, and giving a little bit more effort on that side of the ball, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, I will say for Durant and the Nets, like their defense was very good. It was good and very in certain aspects of the game.
Yeah.
Specifically around blocks. KD was among the league leader in blocks. Nick Claxton is just about the league leader in blocks. He's only 2 behind Lopez. Defensively, Durant was having arguably his best season of his career also. Like he was, I know a lot of times the focus is on one side of the ball because he's so amazing on offense, defensively, he was unbelievable this season. Brooklyn right now, even still right now, I mean, it's only been 2 games without him, but they still rank top 5 in the league in defensive efficiency. And actually, in the last couple of games where they've lost, it actually really hasn't been the defense totally that's been the problem. It's that they can't really score.
Yeah.
Like they're having a lot of trouble scoring, specifically in the fourth quarter. So I'm actually not so as long as Simmons can come back and play, I'm not so worried about their defense the way it's constructed. I am a little bit. But I am more concerned about the offense. But yeah, no, I don't want to undersell KD. Like, he's a great defender as well, and that is probably a part of his game that is missed when people just kind of look at it. And the Nets, look, they just have to. There's a lot of stuff when you miss Kevin Durant. Like, you miss a lot. it's an incredible loss.
You miss one of the best players in the league, obviously. I wanted to make a point and ask you something about KD. And obviously, you mentioned that he lives and breathes basketball.
Yeah.
He's a hooper for life. Like 2 months ago, I heard Colin Cowherd do a criticism in some part to KD because he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have kids. Obviously, what's your opinion about that part? That it's really funny, man. It's like
I have no opinion. I mean, whatever, man. I don't who cares? There's some days I have a wife and kids and I'm like, man, why did I do this? Right. So I don't know. I mean, that's a crazy criticism from Coward. Is it rare? I mean, is it rare? So that's why you
like Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers.
What's that?
It's some type similar to Aaron Rodgers, right? He doesn't have kids. He doesn't have.
Yeah, no, right, exactly, right. Oh, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, no. See, no, it's a hilarious criticism. It does make me feel like Colin had nothing to talk about that day.
Facts.
Because that doesn't seem like anything. I think if you're a fan of the team, it's one of the reasons it's super easy to root for KD is that there is no question. If you're a fan and fans care about this, there is no question about whether winning is his top priority. It definitely is. There's no debate about it. So actually to bring that up as a criticism or as a question mark is hilarious. I think it's just content. But the guy, if you're going to root for a player, Durant, okay, so this is the best example. This is the last thing I'll say about Durant here with this one. But the best example I thought of, the thing that crystallized this the most for me about Durant was actually it was years ago when he was coming back from the Achilles surgery and he was about to make his Nets debut. And he was actually doing one of his first press conferences at the time. So this is a couple years ago. And one of the reporters asked him, oh, while you were rehabbing, because, your Achilles, you can't really walk that much, right? You're rehabbing. He said, while you were rehabbing, did you learn any new hobbies? Did you pick up any new hobbies? And Durant was so confused by the question because he was like, hobbies? No, right? I was in the gym and I was rehabbing. That was my hobby, was getting back onto the basketball court. So even the idea of trying to figure out something new to do or get better at something, that was totally foreign to him. He was like, no, my hobby was getting into the gym, getting into the trainer and rehabbing my Achilles injury. And it was just a hilarious answer that really made it so clear that the guy, if you didn't already know it, that the guy only thought about being better at basketball. It's his only thought. So, man, I don't know. Wife and kids don't work into that mix. I can see it. It makes sense based on the rest of his life, it seems.
Man, that was a great answer. Obviously, we know how Colin Cowherd moves. So, do you think, in your opinion, that maybe this narrative that KD can win without Curry is haunting KD, or it will haunt KD in the future?
I mean, I don't know how these guys think. I do think that trying to compare NBA athletes to our own life is a mistake because we're just
that doesn't work.
It just doesn't work. These guys are just different in a lot of ways. I'm not saying they're better. I'm just saying they're just way different, right? Trying to compare your own life, which is what people like us do, right? When we talk about podcasts, is usually a mistake in trying to figure out what motivates athletes, because athletes just have to be motivated by basically everything. And so this is why often you see athletes, I think, say that, kind of pick out villains. They'll pick out people that they don't like, or they'll pick out people that they think are talking bad about them. And they'll use that as motivation. Because when you get to be this good, I mean, it's probably pretty hard to motivate yourself in some way because you're better than everybody else, right? So you have to find these other motivations. So do I think Kevin Durant is motivated to win a championship? Of course. Do I think it's
course.
because of Steph Curry? I don't think that's the case. And so he doesn't, there's been no real evidence that he cares about that enough. But do I think he's motivated to win and only thinks about this? Yeah, but I think that's the case for most athletes at this point. Like most guys on this level have picked out some narrative in their mind or multiple narratives in their mind that motivate them day to day. Because being motivated by torching Laurie Markin in a playoff series like isn't good enough. Like he can do that every time. Like he doesn't. That's not a motivation. I don't think that's a motivation. I think that's like he knows he can do it every time. At that point, you have to pick higher sort of ceilings to reach. So I don't think it haunts him necessarily. I don't think there's any evidence at all of that. I do think that, like most athletes of this tier, they are going to pick out things that are going to drive them into the gym every single day to get better. And maybe that is one of them, but I don't think it's like something that bothers him. I think it's probably something that motivates him, if anything else.
Fact. So let's continue to the partner in crime of KD. In this case, I call him Mr. Flat Earth. I call him Mr. Third Eye, Mr. Illuminati. Kyrie, man, I'm not a Brooklyn Nets fan, obviously, but I'm a Kyrie fan. I have to support Kyrie. The way he thinks, the way he acts. He obviously is a contrarian, but we've seen a lot of Kyrie during this time in Brooklyn. The vaccine situation, the sharing the link, which contained anti-Semitism remarks. Obviously, he was banned from IG. There's always something with Kyrie. It's like in construction, they have like a little sign that says we have blank days without an accident. The same thing with Brooklyn, man. It's gonna be it's gonna always there is gonna be always something with Kyrie. What do you think about his comments about James Harden? Obviously, you talked about this in your podcast. He mentioned that they don't have anyone in the locker room that is halfway in. Obviously, that can be interpreted as a shot to James Harden, who quote unquote quitted on the team. What's your opinion about that situation?
Oh man, I mean, like Kyrie has been. We started the Locked On Nets podcast, or came to the Locked On right around the same time. Excuse me, we started podcasting about the Brooklyn Nets the year that they signed Kyrie. It was like 2 months before, right? We kind of had the idea that there was a chance. We thought there was a chance he was. I'm gonna go take the long way here, but like we thought there was a chance he was going to come to Brooklyn, or that Brooklyn was going to make a big signing. We thought it'd be a good to take our Nets sort of fandom and start rolling into a podcast then. Since then, it has been obviously an absolute roller coaster in trying to figure out how to talk about Kyrie Irving. It's really hard. He does not make it easy at times. He's super polarizing. He's among the most fun basketball players ever to watch. When it comes to overall skill, there's undeniable. He's one of the greatest ever, like in terms of handles, in terms of finishing around the rim for his size. Just in terms of just overall skill, NBA players kind of love him, it seems like, and really look up to him, especially the younger guys, because they just are probably in awe of his skill. From a narrative point of view, there's just been so many things that have come up over the years that it's like totally impossible to probably defend that part of it, even though at times I've agreed with a lot of things that he's done. Like, or I've been pro Kyrie Irving in a lot of his decisions, but he makes it hard. I did find that quote about Harden, that veiled shot at Harden that you mentioned about being all in, kind of hilarious, because Kyrie has not been available for large portions of seasons, this season included. I just think, like, the way I look at Kyrie at this point, as a fan and as a podcaster and someone that talks about the Nets, is I love when he's on the court. I want him to remain on the court. I hope that he doesn't do anything to take him off the court. And that's just kind of where you sit with him. It's like being on pins and needles from a fan point of view, because he's tough. So it's hard. It's hard to answer questions about Kyrie, because I think that some people are really opinionated about him. I'm actually not. I don't have really strong opinions about his personal beliefs and stuff. I don't really care. But
me too.
But when the stuff comes up, it makes it really hard to talk about, because it's usually non-basketball related, and that sucks. And I mostly just want to talk about basketball with Kyrie. But he makes it really tough to do that, because there's been 50 examples over the last couple of years that have nothing to do with basketball, that he ends up being part of. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but those are kind of my like high level thoughts around Kyrie.
Don't worry. And he's also in a contract year, right?
He is, and it's funny too because he's going to be free agent. They had a chance. It really looked like he was going to sign an extension prior to the vaccine stuff last season. They were really close. The vaccine mandates came in. They paused. That I think was the timeline. And they were really close to just signing him, Harden, and Durant. I think Harden turned down an extension, and Kyrie, they kind of paused the talks. This season, they tried to negotiate an extension. They were far apart, I think, on what the terms of the contract were based on like, he needed to play a certain amount of games or the money or, whatever it was, they couldn't agree. Now, he is a free agent. They kind of have to re-sign him because if they were to let him go, they cannot come close to replacing him with the money that they would have under the cap. Like they would still be over the cap, I believe. And so they're going to be in a weird spot. My guess is they do re-sign him. My guess is he goes from now to the end of the season. Fingers crossed, nothing happened. He's been so quiet. He's been very quiet. He's been head down, playing. Nothing's happened. Great with the media. I kind of do think that continues from now to the end of the season. And I think that they talked themselves into re-signing him. So, but who knows, man? With Kyrie,
we never know.
This could be old by the time you post it.
Yeah,
right.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy how Kyrie do his things, even though he's a great, unbelievable player. One of the last question that I have for you, obviously in Brooklyn, as you mentioned, it was the mandate when it comes to the vaccine. He didn't want to get vaccine. That was in the past. Obviously in Brooklyn, there is a lot of Jewish people. There is a whole community there. He shared the link. We know what happened after that. He was suspended 8 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And my question to you is: do you think that Kyrie is considering suing the Nets for that, for what happened during those 8 games that he was out? He was asked this question in one of the interviews, and he said, "Oh, we'll work on that. I have a great team surrounding me. We'll see what happens in the future." He wasn't really. He didn't say no. I'm not gonna do this, or he wasn't clear in the opposite way. What's your opinion about the whole situation?
I never heard that quote before. That's interesting. My guess is no, but I don't know how this works. I will say at the time. So I don't know if he's going to sue him or not. I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know that.
But at the time, I did think from a labor point of view, and I said this on the podcast multiple times, from a labor and contract. I do have a background in labor negotiations before, so I have a little insight in this. I did think at the time from a labor point of view that the Nets had opened themselves up to problems with him, because I did think that there was a good chance, or there was some chance, that the way they handled that situation could have been in violation of a contract. They didn't, at least in the media at the time, raise that much of a stink. Like that didn't really come up. But if you go back and listen, no one's going to do this, but if you go back and listen to old podcasts we had during that time, we did talk multiple times saying, man, the Nets are in a tricky spot here. What they did here from strictly a labor point of view, unionization, labor contracts. If you see Kyrie as a labor a labor member of the union, the handling the situation by the Nets, I thought at the time actually bad. And I was of the mind too that I thought the union was going to file multiple grievances against the Nets because they just didn't seem to have a timeline. It kind of just made up his suspension. This has nothing to do with what I thought about the tweet, or excuse me, the Instagram thing or the links or anything like that. That's not good. I'm just saying strictly from how they handled the situation from then on. I actually did think the Nets set themselves up for maybe some litigation later, or at least grievances at the time. So while you telling me that is news to me, I'd never heard that quote before. I'm not shocked by it, because I thought the Nets, there was a chance they did not handle that correctly. And there's a chance too that a court would see it the same way by the letter of the contract and by the letter of their collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, and that's a great point that you made. We can separate how what we think about Kyrie, if we agree or disagree with his remarks. But as you said, it wasn't mentioned too much in the media. That part of the letter of the law of the contracts and
Yeah, the
everything.
CBA is like usually very clear about this. If you want to stop someone from working, it has to be so cut and dry. It has to be so clear as under. Now I don't know what the language of the CBA is, but I do know that collective bargaining agreements, if you want to stop someone from working, your reason has to be completely airtight. Like it has to be so clear and spelled out. And maybe it is. Like maybe this falls under that. Maybe it's, clauses under just personal conduct and things like that, and fine, whatever, right? But I just did think that it was interesting at the time that I was like, wow, the longer this goes on, the longer it doesn't seem to have boundaries to it. I always did wonder it, but then I kind of forgot about it because he came back. But yeah, maybe
Yeah.
down the line, if he doesn't sign a contract or whatever, you see something, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, it's been a great podcast so far. Do you have 5 more minutes, man?
Yeah, 5 more. That's good. All good.
Cool, man. I have two more little topics. Ben Simmons, man. We've seen Ben Simmons struggling mightily when it comes to scoring the basketball. What's your opinion? Do you think that maybe because I don't like Ben Simmons at all. I know he's a great defender. He's a great facilitator in transition. I like what he does in transition, but he's too fucking scared to score the basketball, man. Do you see the Brooklyn Nets getting deep into the playoffs with Ben Simmons in the starting lineup, or do you think that maybe they can trade him?
Oh, I don't think they can trade him. So I don't think that's. I actually don't think
That's not a
on
possibility
the
for you.
I mean, anything is a possibility, but
yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
don't.
I get it.
I don't think that his value and his contract would. I think it'd be so hard to trade him. I don't even know what you would get back matching the money. So I actually don't think that that's really a real possibility. In terms of watching it, look, I usually try to reserve my feelings about players as people because I don't know them as people, and none of us are friends with these guys. So therefore,
Facts.
it's just like just try to like watch what they do on the court. If you're a basketball podcast, that's why the Colin Cowherd thing I thought was hilarious. Like because I'm like, who cares, right? But from an on-court point of view, I will say the Nets' success is directly related at this point. If you want to win they want to win the championship, is directly related to Simmons playing well. Like he has to play well. He has to play at a really high level. If he can play at a really high level, they are championship contenders. If he can't, it's going to probably be tough, right? Like he does the things in theory, he does the things the team really needs. They need from him, right? They need him to work in transition. They need him to be a point of attack defender to kind of cover for Kyrie against really dynamic guards or play small ball 5 when they can do, Simmons plus shooters lineups. Like he gives them a lot of different options there. They desperately need him on defense. They really need him to be a connector and a screen setter. They run like pistol action with him all the time with dribble handoffs. Like they do need him. And I'm also with you. The part where he does not want to shoot the ball, and the part where it's not even shooting, the part where he doesn't seem to even want to try to get to the rim
as a
6'10" guy who has good handles that can blow past most drop defense on him, like that can usually get by or at least kind of push the issue. Him not wanting to do that is a concern for me, and it actually is probably the biggest concern that the Nets have among everything, because the more he doesn't do that, the more it becomes obvious he doesn't want to. Yeah. And they just desperately need him to try to get to the basket. We've been saying from the very beginning, we're like, hey, man, go 0 for 10. Go to the rim and go 0 for 10. Get 10 shots. Get 10 shots at the rim. Yeah. If you miss them all, you miss them all. It doesn't matter. Like they don't need them to go in right now. It's like not a big deal. What they need is the threat that it can happen. And right now, it's not really a threat that it can happen. And that is the biggest concern. That is actually the biggest concern for me for the Nets. And it's only a concern because I think that he's the difference of being a good team or a great team, right? Like if he's just like he is now, which I think is good, right? Like he does certain things really, really well. It's fine. If he can be great, get to the rim, not be afraid to get to the line, try to get other teams in foul trouble, push the issue, blow past go over the top of smaller defenders with like the jump hook or finishing at the rim, go past bigger defenders and get to the rim. press the issue where you don't even have to finish because you're going to kick out because they have multiple shooters, this team can be awesome. The problem is he's averaging less than 5 shots a game. It's clear he doesn't want to do it outside of a few times where maybe it looks like he sort of talks himself into it. And
or being forced.
Or forced to do it because the guys are telling him he has to. It's just really clear. Like, you don't even need to be a basketball expert to know this, right? The guy was averaging double-digit shots a game with the Sixers. He's averaging 6 shots a game in 26 minutes with the Nets. Like, it's just obvious. So no one's rooting harder for Simmons. I really want him to do well. Again, on a personal level, I know some people like can't stand him because of the Sixers thing. I actually don't care about any of that. Like, whatever. But from a Nets point of view, there's like, if you're a Nets fan, let me put it this way. If you're a Nets fan, you should be rooting harder for Ben Simmons than anybody.
Yeah.
because
that's a great point.
It shouldn't matter. They're not going to trade. He's not going to be able to be traded. And at that point, go out there and cheer for him really loud, cheer for him times he goes to the rim, cheer for him when he misses, do all this stuff, because that is the key to the Nets season. And sometimes people really have trouble seeing that. So that's my biggest concern for the Nets. And every game, that's the first thing that I watch for.
Thanks. So the last question that I have for you, Jack Vaughn, he's been doing a great job. Do you think that this is a 2-part question? Do you think that maybe he's a Coach of the Year candidate? And obviously, we saw the KD quotes when before Nash was let go, saying that KD wanted more defensive drills. What do you think has been an adjustment with Jack Vaughn?
Well, it's hilarious when you read these quotes because, so KD did say that, but then there's been
closeout drills, right?
Yeah, it was drills. It was like he wanted more closeout drills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then there's been multiple articles written that have praised Vaughn for saying they don't practice.
Yeah.
So like, I think the KD thing was more that he just didn't like Nash and just didn't like Nash's style. Whatever was Nash's style that KD didn't like, he didn't like it because they don't really practice a ton now. And everyone loves that. So because they like Vaughn, because they like Jack Vaughn. And
definitely.
So, in terms of Coach of the Year candidate, look, there's been so many good teams this year that I think it's hard for me to put him at the top of that list because there's just been a lot of teams that have exceeded expectations. Like the Celtics have been really, really good this season. Obviously, the Grizzlies are good. The Nuggets are good. The Pelicans, right? The Kings are 24-18. No one thought they were going to be this good, right? Even like the Jazz are like around 500. Everyone thought they were going to stink with Will Hardy. So there's so many coaches that I think are up there, but he's definitely in the group. Like he's in the group. It's very, the team was bad. Then he took over and the team was good. So I think it's a situation where he's definitely in the group. I don't think he's the favorite, but he's put himself in the conversation. I love him. I think he's a great coach. I want him. His quotes are great. He thinks a lot. He gives great answers. It's clear that he's trying to put different things in place for the team. I'm a huge fan of him.
He has a lot of charisma. I like that, the personality of Jack Vaughn, and obviously, as you mentioned, the players like him.
He's the best
to play for him.
He's the best interview. Like he's the best coach interview in basketball. I think he gives great answers.
He's amazing. I mean, Doug, come on, man. It was a great podcast. Thank you so much for being here. It was a great podcast. Obviously, everyone in my page can watch this, and thanks for being here, man. It was a pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me. Love to talk Nets anytime.
That's good. So that's been all NBA a la Chilena, obviously the MOP podcast with Doug Norrie from the Locked On Nets podcast. I'm recommend you to go watch that and subscribe to their channel. It's amazing content. So that was it. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks everyone for watching and is gonna watch this in the future. So that was it. Until next time, everybody. This has been NBA a la Chilena. That was it. Peace.